Hey, and welcome to Leadershipisation, all things leadership. I want to start today by hitting you with a bit of a truth bomb. And this is something that when my coaching clients have this realization, it's quite groundbreaking for them. So that's where I want to start today. The truth bomb is this: if you're waiting for authority via a title before you actually step up, you're already being overlooked. You're already being overlooked because leadership doesn't start with a title. Leadership starts when you start doing things to shape thinking, when you start influencing. Whether someone's invited you to shape thinking or whether someone's invited you to influence or not. Now, this is exactly the point where lots of people get stuck. They wait. They think, I need to wait to be asked. I need to wait to be recognized. I need to wait to be given more responsibility. I need to wait to get a title. All while sitting in rooms where decisions are being influenced and where they could influence them, where decisions are being influenced and not just being made. You see, people who shape outcomes are not always the most senior person in the room. They're actually the ones who know how to position their idea clearly. They're the ones that know how to frame a problem a little bit differently so that it lands. And they're the ones who know how to speak in a way that moves people. My name is Beth Bergen. I'm a global leadership communication coach. And if you've ever felt like your thinking is really strong, but your influencing just isn't cutting it, then this is exactly a conversation for you. So I'd love it if you join me now, because, authority might open the door, but influence is what actually shifts the energy in the room. So if you don't need a title to influence, the real question becomes, what are people responding to when they decide whether to follow your thinking? What are they responding to when they decide whether to follow your thinking? So I've got 5 talking points today, and the first one is this: influence isn't about being right. It's about being heard at the right moment. As human beings, we don't adopt ideas. We don't change our mind based on logic alone. It's all about timing, the context, and the relevance to what's going on for us right now. All of those things play a really important role. So learning, when we first learn to speak, we learn to speak when we're ready. And what we need to move to is to understanding that if we can read the room, then actually we have more influence when the room is ready. So it's not about waiting. It must be my turn, or thinking, oh yeah, I've heard all these other conversations and now here I am. It's actually about influencing when the room is ready. So what that equates to is that influence is about reading the room. That's where your influence starts. So You can actually be right too early, but that's the same as being wrong if you've read the room wrong. So come back to my first point. Influence isn't about being right. It's about being heard at the right moment. So the skill you need to look to develop is to actually read the room. The second point is this: waiting to be invited to speak signals that you've got a lower perceived authority. You think that you're not important enough to actually speak up because you have something to add. Now, so this is kind of like an identity pattern that we have. And that identity pattern is, I'll speak when I'm asked. So you can be sitting there with these great ideas percolating in your brain, but you don't say anything because your identity is, I'll wait or speak when I'm asked. And what this does is it reinforces this identity that you're a follower rather than being a leader. You can lead from any chair in the organization. Now, what happens is everybody sitting around in the room, we're all unconsciously, we're ranking people. And we rank them by their presence, the presence that they have, the energy they bring into the room. We also rank them by their contribution. So if you're sitting there thinking a whole lot of awesome things, but not saying anything, then what we're actually doing is we're being overlooked and we're training everyone else that we don't have anything to say that particularly matters. When you're consistently not saying anything because you're waiting and you're being overlooked, everyone thinks, I've got nothing to say. If you don't step in, then you're actually going to continue to get stepped over. People will continue to ignore you because you're not putting your hand up. Now, a mistake that we often make in that situation, and this is, this has been the topic of whole other leadershipizations that we've done, is like, don't apologize. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now because it's a beautiful rabbit hole, but don't apologize when you do speak. And there are lots of different ways that we apologize for ourselves. The third point I'd like to talk about today is this: over-explaining actually weakens our influence. Over-explaining, like those great long justifications, those great long explanations, they dilute your authority, they dilute your influence. Those people who've got strong influence or who want strong influence lead with their position. They lead with where they are and where they want to be right now, not with the whole big backstory. Now, we think the backstory is important, and sometimes when we're feeling uncertain, the over-explanation, excuse me, the justification becomes part of us feeling like we're on top of it, feeling like we're confident enough to share the information. Like, actually, the less you justify, the better your idea is going to sound. Otherwise, when you justify, what you're actually doing is opening the door for additional concerns to be raised. Maybe this idea is a bit negotiable. Maybe I can come in and I can question these extra things that they've said. And those things might be just one tiny weeny part of what you're actually looking to achieve. What I find is that the more precise you can be, the more clarity you can provide, the higher your credibility is likely to be. And so a wee test that you can apply to yourself here is, if you need 5 minutes, if you need more than 5 minutes to explain something, then you don't own it enough yourself yet. You don't understand it well enough yourself. So cut out the over-explaining. The fourth point for us to look at today is this one. Influence comes from pre-framing, not just the idea. Now, what do I mean by this? We respond to how the idea is framed, and that helps to shift the direction that the decision might go in. And what we do when we frame it is we translate our thinking into an impact, and we do this by connecting with the ideas, or connecting our idea to the outcome that leaders care about. So we make sure that we're demonstrating, we're ticking those boxes. And this is the pre-framing. And it might be like some examples. An awful lot now is framed around the environment. So if your organization, if you were purchasing particular goods and on behalf of your organization, and it's got a particular environmental policy, a purchasing policy that it needs to follow, you would talk to those. If you know that your manager is particularly aligned right now to improving the culture of the organization, then pre-frame it around the culture. You might start by saying, we've had a lot of conversation about the importance of a positive culture in the organization. You've pre-framed it, and then you're going to talk about your idea. The other thing that's great to pre-frame, because your leaders will care about them a whole lot, is to pre-frame around the outcomes. Like, what are the outcomes that are being expected here? You know, I'm particularly excited about this idea because it ticks these 3 boxes. Just an introduction, just a pre-frame, because if your idea doesn't connect with what matters, then nothing's going to change. So be thinking about the pre-framing and work out that pre-framing so that you can make sure that you're appealing directly to what is important to the decision makers. This is how you bring influence to the table. The 5th one for us to look at today is this. It's important, if you're going to have influence, that you have credibility. And a critical thing about credibility is that it's built in lots of small moments. You know, we think, we often can make the mistake with credibility of thinking, oh, you know, one boom, you know, I did this great big thing and everybody suddenly realized, wow, they're really credible. Yeah, influence, it's cumulative. It's not necessarily situational. So it's those small, consistent things that you do that build trust, that build people's awareness of you. It's that clarity that you bring, not the frequency of your voice, that builds that presence. So, you know, it's not always the loudest voice that is the most influential. It's that clarity that's important. So what am I trying to say? People will back you. People will back you when you've demonstrated to them that you think clearly, that they can trust you under pressure, because this is how you reveal that influence that you have over time. So that credibility, that influence is built in lots of small moments. And we've talked about before on Leadershipisation the fact that your team are watching you. And it's often the silly little vitally important things that they notice that you think no one will notice. And those are the things that can chip away at your influence. If they're negative, those are the things that can chip away at your influence and at your credibility. Whereas if you're real and authentic and they can trust you and they know they can rely on you, you're building your influence the entire time. Okay, let's look at a practical tool that you can use. And I've called this tool the one sentence position. And what I've got is a bit of a template for you to use in terms of a sentence. Now, excuse me, what I'm conscious of is that these templates always sound really weird. I give you the template so that what you can do is get a sense of these are the things I need to make sure I'm covering off on, and this is the order for it to go in. Now, obviously, you'll personalize this so it sounds a bit more like you. But this is really like my one sentence position. So before you speak, it's a matter of doing some preparation that goes like this. The first part of the sentence is this. My view is. My view is. And in there, you're going to put a clear position. Now, lots of people make the error here of going on and on and on. Short, succinct. Clarity is what we're looking for here, not the backstory. Remember that this is one sentence, and one sentence shouldn't take you a minute to say. So my view is clear position. The second part of the sentence is this. My view is clear position because. And after that, you're going to identify the key reason. Now, there might be 5 reasons. Pick the top one, the one that you believe is going to be the easiest for you to pre-frame and the one that will tick the most boxes. You've got the other reasons, but they're over to one side. You can talk to them later. So we've got 2 parts to our sentence so far. My view is clear position because key reason. Yeah. The third part of the sentence is this. And the outcome will, sorry, I made an error. And the impact will be, and pop the outcome in. The key outcome. There will be other outcomes, no doubt, but this is your key sentence. So I'm going to take you through the template again, and then I'll give you an example. My view is clear position because key reason, and the impact will be outcome. Now, here's an example. My view is we move forward because delay increases the risk, and the impact is we maintain momentum. Simple, clear, and leaving the space for lots of questions to be asked for clarification if that's necessary. Move forward is the clear position. Delay increases risk is the key reason. And maintain momentum is the outcome. Now, I know that if what you do is take the time to use that one sentence position and to use that 3-part sentence, your influence will rise. Now, once you've made that statement, then what you need to do is pause. You don't start explaining and over-justifying, because that softens it. We want you to do it and just pause and see, are there questions? Don't justify your strong stand. Wait until you're asked for more information, if you're asked for more information. Now, what I really love about this one sentence position is that it immediately will shift you from being a contributor to an influencer. Oh, but I don't have the title, Beth. I know, but you can lead from any chair in the organisation. So you're now influencing by offering a strong opinion. No waffle, none of the over-explanation, none of that. You're just getting on and actually saying what you believe or what you're recommending. Now, does this mean that you're going to get exactly what you've asked for? No, that isn't how it happens. But it does mean that you are communicating much better than you were communicating before when you were saying nothing. Yeah? So that's the thing that's really important. Be prepared to speak up. Okay, deep reflection question for you. And I'd say this every week. Think about this. Write down some answers, go away, come back, ask yourself, and what else? And what else? Or and where else? So the question today is this one. Where am I holding back my thinking, waiting for permission that leadership never actually requires? Where am I holding back my thinking? Where am I holding back saying what I think needs to change, saying how this could be improved, identifying what our next step might be, because I'm thinking, oh, not my job, not my pay scale, I'm not paid to do that. If you want to lead and you want to have influence, you've got to be prepared to deeply reflect on this, because self-awareness is where leadership intelligence starts to come from. Right, what are our key takeaways? We've got 3 here. The first one is, influence is built by your behavior, by the things that you do and say, not by your title or by your position. It's important for you to understand that. Don't be waiting for the role to come. Waiting to be invited means that you lessen the opportunities for other people to actually see your authority. So when you have the opportunity to deliver clear, well-timed thinking, that helps to move the decisions faster. It moves them much faster than long-winded, detailed explanations, where people think that if they ask you to stop talking, that you might be offended because perhaps, you think they're being rude. So if you're constantly sitting at the table, you're there, you're in the room, but you're not actually shaping what happens, then that's likely to be a bit of an influence gap. And those gaps don't close with time. They close with deliberate shifts. They close with deliberate shifts in how you show up, how you speak, and how you position your thinking, because you don't have to be the most senior person in the room to shape a decision. You need to be an effective communicator and someone who demonstrates that what they're adding to the conversation is adding value. Now, if you're ready to step into that, To build that influence without waiting for the authority or the title, use the QR code or the link in the comments to book a conversation with me, because leadership doesn't begin when you've been given a role. It begins when you decide to use your voice differently. If you need a title before you lead, then you've misunderstood leadership. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you've got any questions or comments, pop them on the platform that you're watching this on. #replay, please. Let us know. Thank you so much, Nisa. I hope I've said that well. Great to have you join us today. Before we wrap today, there's just one quick thing that I wanted to say to you. I've been working behind the scenes, and in Leadershipisation, all things leadership, we've got this really big body of leadership conversations. So I'm looking to organise those into podcast form, because it'd be easier for you to go back to revisit, and to explore them by theme. And it won't be replacing this weekly live. That will continue, but it will certainly give you another way to be able to access the Leadershipisation library. It's really hard to say those two things right after each other. So a whole lot more of that will be available in coming days and weeks. So thank you so much for joining us. See you next week. Bye now.